On a busy street, two beggar twins sell a valuable necklace that could have belonged to a millionaire's deceased wife. When he recognizes the object, he decides to investigate the story behind it. What he discovers about the twins' past and its connection to his own life changes everything. In the end, a surprising choice by the millionaire will change everyone's fate. Get ready because this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment on where you are watching from. The rain fell mercilessly on the capital that Friday afternoon. Cars piled up in the chaotic traffic downtown, while impatient drivers waited for the light to change. Raphael Allard drummed his fingers on the steering wheel of his imported Mercedes, his impeccable Italian suit contrasting with his tired expression. At 45 years old, the businessman had accumulated professional achievements and a considerable fortune, but he carried a shadow in his eyes that no amount of material success could dispel. That's when he saw them. Two identical girls, about 6 years old, were crossing between the cars, barefoot and soaking wet. Their dark brown hair was plastered to their delicate faces, and their large dark eyes held a desperate gleam that belied their age. One of them held something shiny in her small, trembling hands. Raphael tried to ignore them, as he did with so many other beggars on the streets of the capital, but there was something in the eyes of those children that prevented him from looking away. The girl holding the object approached his window, and he reluctantly lowered it a little. "Sir, please buy our necklace. Our grandmother is very sick and we need to buy medicine," she said, her voice choked with suppressed tears. The other child, apparently more timid, remained a few steps behind, watching with apprehension. Raphael was about to deny it when the object dangled before his eyes. It was a gold necklace with a crescent-shaped pendant, adorned with small diamonds. The world seemed to stop. That necklace, he would recognize it anywhere. It was identical to the one Clara, his late wife, wore every day until her last breath 3 years ago, the same one that had mysteriously disappeared after her passing. "Where did you get that from?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. "It belonged to our mother," replied the girl holding the necklace. "She disappeared a long time ago, and Grandma told us to keep it for when we really needed it." The light turned green, but Raphael didn't move. The cars behind him started honking impatiently. "What are your names?" he asked, feeling his heart race. "I'm Sophia, and she's Lara," the girl replied, pointing to her sister. "We're twins, Sophia and Lara." The names echoed in his mind like a riddle that needed to be deciphered. Raphael parked the car in the first space he found, ignoring the protests of the other drivers. Something much bigger than the capital's traffic was at stake at that moment. "Can you take me to your house? I want to meet your grandmother," Raphael offered, still trying to understand the situation. The girls hesitated, exchanging suspicious glances. Their upbringing warned them about the dangers of trusting strangers. "Grandma Anna is very sick," Lara said, speaking for the first time. "We just wanted to buy her medicine." The name Anna set off another alarm in Raphael's mind. Clara mentioned that name occasionally, always in phone conversations that she interrupted when he approached. At the time, he hadn't paid it any attention, trusting his wife completely. "I can help you buy the medicine," Raphael assured, "and I promise I won't hurt anyone. I just want to understand how you got this necklace." After a brief, silent deliberation, the twins agreed. Raphael accompanied them to a simple neighborhood on the outskirts of the capital, where a small, modest house sheltered his sick grandmother. The journey was marked by a tense silence, broken only by the directions the girls gave. Anna Caruso lay on a makeshift bed in the living room, breathing heavily and looking pale. When she saw her granddaughters arriving with a well-dressed stranger, she tried to get up, alarmed. "Who are you?" he asked in a weak but firm voice. Raphael introduced himself, explaining that he had found the girls trying to sell the necklace. He mentioned that he knew of a similar piece of jewelry and was curious about its origins. Anna eyed him suspiciously, but her high fever and concern for her condition left her with few options. "The girls have no one else but me," Anna explained between coughing fits. "Ingrid, their mother, disappeared 2 years ago without a trace. The necklace was hers, the only thing of value we have left." Raphael felt a shiver run down his spine when he heard the name Ingrid. The pieces were starting to fit together in a disturbing way. "And their father?" he asked, dreading the answer. "Gabriel had an accident on a construction site 6 years ago. The girls were so young they barely remember him," Anna replied, her gaze lost in painful memories. "He worked for a construction company that was bought by a big businessman who cut back on safety. A lot of workers had accidents back then." Raphael felt a huge weight on his shoulders. The construction company he mentioned could only be Allard Constructions, which he had acquired in 2018 and restructured to increase profitability. The cost-cutting measures had generated protests at the time, but he ignored them, focusing only on the financial results. During the conversation, Sophia showed Raphael a small photo frame with a picture of his mother. When he saw Ingrid's face, Raphael felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. It was the same woman who appeared in some old photos with Clara, his wife. Photos that he had found after Clara's departure, but he never knew who the mysterious friend was. "I need to help you," Raphael said determinedly. "I'm going to call a private doctor to see Mrs. Anna immediately and make sure she gets the proper treatment." While they waited for the doctor that Raphael had called, he watched the twins playing in the small yard. They were resilient children who maintained the purity of their childhood even in the midst of difficulties. Sophia, the most talkative, led the games while Lara, more observant, followed her sister with admiration. The doctor arrived, examined Anna, and diagnosed advanced-stage pneumonia. He prescribed strong antibiotics and recommended hospitalization, which Raphael promptly offered to pay for. Anna, despite her initial resistance, ended up accepting help, given the severity of her condition. That night, with Anna already installed in a private room in the best hospital in the city, and the girls temporarily accommodated in Raphael's apartment under the care of his trusted housekeeper, the businessman searched through old documents and photographs, seeking to understand the connection between Clara, his late wife, and Ingrid, the twins' missing mother. Among the belongings he had kept after Clara's departure, he found a diary that he had never had the courage to open. Perhaps the answers he was looking for were there. With a heavy heart, Raphael opened the diary and began to read, preparing himself to face truths that could forever change his view of the past and, consequently, his future. Clara's diary revealed more than Raphael could have imagined. The pages, yellowed with time, contained not only memories, but also painful confessions and a well-kept secret that was now unfolding before his eyes. Ingrid is desperate. Gabriel had an accident today at the construction site, and his condition is serious. I don't know how to tell Raphael that the construction company he bought is involved. He would never understand my friendship with Ingrid. The entry was dated 6 years ago, exactly when he had acquired Allard Constructions. Raphael continued reading, his trembling hands turning the pages that revealed a story parallel to his own life. Gabriel couldn't resist. Ingrid is devastated, pregnant with twins and without resources. I offered her financial help, but she is too proud to accept. All she agreed to was that I keep her family necklace temporarily so she could buy what she needed for the birth without selling her mother's only memento. Raphael felt a lump in his throat. The necklace he had seen around his wife's neck for years was not hers, but rather an object she had kept for her friend in need, an object that, by a cruel coincidence of fate, had been found in the hands of Ingrid's daughters. The following entries described how Clara had maintained secret contact with Ingrid, sending her money anonymously and following the twins' growth from a distance. Her wife had spun a web of lies to protect her friend, fearing that Raphael, too busy with his business, would not understand the situation or, worse, would feel responsible for the tragedy. Today I visited Sophia and Lara in secret. They are growing up strong and healthy despite the difficulties. Ingrid works 2 jobs to support the girls and their sick mother. I wish I could do more, but she won't accept my direct help. The most I could do was convince her to let me secretly pay for the girls' health insurance. The last diary entry was from a few days before Clara's unexpected departure. I discovered something terrible about Raphael's construction company. I have proof that the negligence was deliberate, a direct order to save resources. I can't look him in the eye, knowing this. Ingrid deserves justice, but how can I destroy my own husband? I need to find a way. Raphael closed the diary, feeling suffocated by the weight of the revelations. His wife had carried this burden alone, torn between loyalty to her husband and compassion for her friend, and he, blinded by ambition, never noticed her silent suffering. The next morning, Raphael woke up determined to investigate Ingrid's disappearance. He hired Guto Cortez, a private investigator recommended by his lawyer, and provided all the information he had, including the photograph found in Anna's house. I want absolute discretion, Raphael instructed. This investigation is personal, and I do not want my name to be mentioned at any time. While awaiting the first results of the investigation, Raphael dedicated himself to caring for Anna and the twins. The elderly woman responded well to treatment, but the doctors recommended prolonged rest and special care after her discharge from hospital. Sophia and Lara, initially shy and suspicious, began to adapt to Raphael's presence. The housekeeper, Mrs. Zania, quickly gained the girls' trust with her patience and irresistible chocolate cake. "You look sad, Uncle Raphael," Sophia observed during dinner, a week after the encounter at the traffic light. "We also feel sad when we remember Mom." Raphael smiled with difficulty, surprised by the child's perspicacity. "I'm thinking about a lot of things," he replied sincerely. "Sometimes adults find out they've made mistakes and don't know how to fix them." "Grandma always says it's never too late to do the right thing," Lara commented, breaking her usual silence. The child's simple wisdom touched Raphael deeply. He had spent years building a financial empire, but now he realized the emptiness of his achievements. What were all his properties and investments worth compared to the suffering he had indirectly caused? The next day, Raphael received a call from Guto Cortez. "I have some preliminary information about Ingrid Caruso," the investigator said. "She has worked for several companies over the past few years, always in low-level administrative positions. About 2 years ago, she was hired by an export company called Martins and Souza International Trading." "And after that?" Raphael asked, anxiously. "After that, she simply disappeared. Her last payment was made, but she never returned to work. The company reported her missing, but the police closed the case due to lack of concrete evidence of a crime." Raphael felt a chill run down his spine. The disappearance coincided with Clara's departure. Could there be a connection? "I want you to investigate this company, Martins and Souza, thoroughly," Raphael instructed. "Find out everything about the owners, operations, anything suspicious." As the investigation progressed, Raphael grew closer and closer to the twins. He took them for walks in the park, watched children's movies at the cinema, and even visited the Allard Corporation office, where they charmed the employees with their curiosity and perfect synchronicity. On a particularly meaningful afternoon, he took them to visit Anna in the hospital. The elderly woman was already sitting up in bed, looking better and smiling when she saw her granddaughters running to hug her. "Thank you for taking care of them," Anna said when they were alone. "Ever since Ingrid disappeared, I've been living in fear of leaving them alone in the world." "Do you know what might have happened to Ingrid?" Raphael asked carefully. "She was excited about her new job," Anna replied, her gaze lost in memories. "She said she could finally give the girls a better life. She mentioned something about an opportunity to work abroad." The conversation was interrupted by a new call from Guto Cortez. Raphael answered in the hallway, out of earshot of Anna and the girls. "I found out something about Martins and Souza," the investigator said, his voice tense. "It's a front company for a human trafficking scheme. They recruit people for supposed jobs abroad, mainly women, and send them into situations of labor exploitation." Raphael felt his blood run cold. The possibility of Ingrid being trapped in a situation of exploitation was unbearable. "Do we have any clues as to her whereabouts?" he asked urgently. "I am investigating a warehouse that may be linked to the operation. I have a contact at the federal police who is helping me discreetly." When he hung up the phone, Raphael found Sophia standing in the hallway, watching him with her big brown eyes. For a moment, he feared that she had heard their conversation. "Uncle Raphael, is Mummy coming back?" the girl asked, her small voice echoing in the aseptic hospital corridor. Raphael crouched down to the child's height and held her delicate hands. "I'm doing everything I can to find your mother," he replied sincerely. "I promise I won't give up." Sophia hugged him unexpectedly, a gesture of trust that moved him deeply. At that moment, Raphael understood that he was not only seeking redemption for himself, but taking on real responsibility for the well-being of those innocent children. Back at his apartment while the girls were sleeping, Raphael received a package sent by Guto. It contained documents from Allard Construções from the time of Gabriel's accident. Among them was a memorandum signed by the then operations director, ordering drastic cuts in safety equipment. The document had his signature authorizing the measure, although he did not remember reading it carefully at the time. The reality of his indirect responsibility for the family's suffering hit him with devastating force. This was not just a matter of charity or personal redemption now, it was a moral debt that had to be paid, no matter the cost. The morning came with unshakable resolve for Raphael. After a sleepless night, turning over in his mind all the revelations of the last few days, he decided that he needed to temporarily step away from the business, to dedicate himself fully to the search for Ingrid. He called an emergency meeting with his board of directors and appointed Mirel Suda, his CFO and the person he trusted most in the company, as interim president. "I have urgent personal matters to attend to," he explained vaguely to the surprised executives. "I trust the company will be in good hands during my absence." Mirel, a competent woman who had worked with him for more than a decade, questioned him privately after the meeting. "Is everything okay, Raphael? You've never walked away like this without planning." "I'm rediscovering some priorities," he replied, feeling he owed his longtime friend at least a partial explanation. "I've found people who need my help, and I can't fail them." That same afternoon, Raphael arranged for Anna to be transferred from the hospital to a high-end recovery facility, where she could receive continued medical care while she made a full recovery. The elderly woman, still reluctant to accept much help, finally relented when Raphael explained that he was doing it for his granddaughters too. "The girls need you strong and healthy," he argued. "And for that, we need the best care possible." Meanwhile, the twins continued to stay in their apartment. Raphael hired a private tutor so that they wouldn't miss out on schoolwork during this unusual time in their lives. Sophia adapted quickly, demonstrating a sharp intelligence and insatiable curiosity. Lara, more reserved, revealed a special talent for drawing, expressing through art what she often couldn't with words. "You draw very well," Raphael praised, looking at a detailed portrait Lara had made of his mother. "You have a special gift." The girl smiled shyly, one of those rare smiles that Raphael had learned to value. "Mom used to draw too," she replied softly. "She drew pictures for us every night before we went to sleep." These little revelations about Ingrid helped Raphael build a more complete portrait of the woman he was searching for. A loving mother, a talented artist, a tireless worker who would do anything for her daughters. Each new piece of information increased his determination to find her. Guto Cortés continued his investigation, now with virtually unlimited resources, provided by Raphael. The investigator had infiltrated a contact at the port and discovered that Martins and Souza was using containers to transport people abroad under the guise of exporting local crafts. "We found documents with lists of products exported in the last 2 years, Guto said during a meeting in a discreet cafe. "Ingrid Caruso appears coded as Lot IC24, sent to a recipient in Spain." "Spain?" Raphael repeated, feeling the weight of geographical distance as yet another obstacle. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I've already contacted a private investigator in Madrid who has worked on similar cases. He's tracking the recipient now." Raphael ran a hand through his grey hair, trying to organize his thoughts. "We need to involve the authorities at some point. This is much bigger than just Ingrid." "I agree, but we need to be strategic," Guto warned. "If we act rashly, we could put not only Ingrid at risk, but all the other victims as well. My contact..." at the federal police suggests gathering as much evidence as possible before filing a complaint. As the investigation progressed, Raphael continued his own search for answers in the past. He revisited former employees of the construction company, seeking to better understand the context of the accident that killed Gabriel. Each new testimony confirmed what he already feared. His greed had created a dangerous work environment that resulted in several preventable tragedies. Pascal Fournier, a former foreman who supervised Gabriel, was particularly enlightening. "That guy was very dedicated," said the man, now retired and living in the interior of the capital. "He warned us several times about the problems with the scaffolding, but the order from above was clear. Deliver on time, no matter what." "And who did these orders come from directly?" asked Raphael, fearing the answer. "From its COO, Martin. Karen, he always said he was following orders from above, cutting costs to please the new owner." Raphael felt the weight of responsibility crush his shoulders. Martin Caron had been fired years ago for financial irregularities, but the damage had already been done. In his obsession with profits, Raphael had created a toxic corporate culture that valued results above human safety. Upon returning to the capital, he found the twins eager for his attention. Despite the weight on his conscience, Raphael found that the presence of the children brought an unexpected lightness to his days. Their innocent questions and surprising observations made him smile even in the darkest moments. "Why do you have so many pictures in the newspapers, but you're never smiling?" Sophia asked, leafing through a business magazine where Raphael appeared on the cover. "I guess I didn't have much to smile about before," he replied honestly. "And now there is," the girl insisted, with the typical frankness of children. Raphael thought for a moment before answering. "I think I'm relearning how to find reasons." At night, while the girls were sleeping, Raphael received an unexpected call from Mirelle, Zoda, his temporary replacement at the company. "Raphael, I found something you need to see," she said, her voice tight. "I was going through some old contracts and discovered a series of suspicious transfers to a company called Martins and Souza, authorized by Martin Caron when he was still a director." Raphael's stomach sank. The connection between his company and Ingrid's possible trafficking was more direct than he had imagined. "How much money?" he asked, dreading the answer. "Millions over 3 years," Morel replied, "disguised as export consultancy. I stopped the transfers immediately, but I think we need to investigate further." "Hire an outside audit," Raphael ordered. "And don't tell anyone else about this for now." As he hung up, Raphael felt a mixture of anger and guilt. His empire had not only been the scene of negligence, but possibly an accomplice to even worse crimes. The search for Ingrid took on even more urgent and personal overtones. The next morning, during breakfast with the twins, Raphael received another call from Guto Cortez. "I have news," the investigator said, his voice thick with suppressed excitement. "My contact in Madrid has located 3 Brazilian women who were rescued from a clandestine textile factory. One of them worked with Ingrid." Raphael felt his heart race. "And what did she say?" "Ingrid was transferred to another factory about 6 months ago. We are tracking the location now, but the area is known for such clandestine operations. We need more time." "Time is what Ingrid may not have," Raphael replied, watching the twins playing innocently in the living room. "Do whatever it takes, Guto. Money is no problem." After hanging up, Raphael noticed Sophia watching him closely. "Was it about Mom?" she asked, with a perceptiveness that continued to surprise him. Raphael hesitated. He didn't want to give the girl's false hope, but he didn't want to lie either. "We're looking for her," he replied carefully. "There are good people helping in several places." Sophia nodded, as if she understood much more than what her words said. "She'll like you when you come back," the girl declared with childlike conviction. "Mommy always said that good people recognize other good people." The simple words touched Raphael deeply. He, who had always considered himself a pragmatic businessman, found himself increasingly emotionally involved in this quest that had begun as an attempt at personal redemption. That night, visiting Anna at the clinic, Raphael found the elderly woman leafing through an old photo album with tears in her eyes. These are memories of happier times, she explained, showing photos of Ingrid pregnant, then with the newborn babies, and finally celebrating the twins' first birthday with a simple but loving cake. Ingrid has always been a force of nature, Anna continued, pride evident in her weak voice. After Gabriel was gone, she didn't allow herself a single day of despair. "The girls need me strong," she always said. Raphael looked at the photographs carefully, noticing in one of them the necklace that was now kept in his safe, shining around Ingrid's neck. "This necklace looks very special," he commented, trying to get more information. "It was my mother's last gift to Ingrid," Anna explained. "A family heirloom passed down through generations. Ingrid only took it out once when she lent it to a very dear friend who helped her through the hardest times." "So friend?" Raphael asked, knowing exactly who it was. "Yes, an elegant and kind woman, Clara, if I'm not mistaken. Ingrid rarely spoke of her. It seemed like a secret they both shared." Raphael felt a shiver run down his spine. The cycle of connections between Ingrid, Clara, and himself was closing more and more, revealing an intertwined destiny that went far beyond coincidences. Raphael's private office, located on the top floor of the imposing Allard Corporation building, was plunged into the silence of the São Paulo night. Only the light on his desk remained on as he examined the documents that Mirelle had discovered. The transfers to Martins and Souza formed a disturbing pattern that stretched back years, far beyond the period in which Martin Caron had worked at the company. The phone rang, breaking Raphael's concentration. "Mr. Allard, we have a situation in the apartment," said Mrs. Zania's worried voice. "Little Lara has a high fever and is crying in pain. Sophia is very scared." Raphael immediately dropped the documents and ran to the elevator. On the way to his apartment, he called the private doctor who had been treating his family for years and requested an emergency visit. His concern for Lara consumed him, making him realize how important the twins had become in his life in such a short time. When he arrived home, he found Sophia sitting next to her sister on the bed, holding her hand and softly singing a lullaby. The scene of such pure loyalty and love moved Raphael deeply. "She's very hot, Uncle Raphael," Sophia said with tears in her eyes. "That's how Grandma looked before she went to the hospital." Raphael approached and touched Lara's forehead, feeling the alarming heat of the fever. The girl opened her eyes, glassy and distant. "I want Mommy," she whispered, her voice weak. "The doctor is coming," Raphael assured, holding her warm little hand. "Everything will be fine." Dr. Moreau arrived within 15 minutes, examining Lara with the calm efficiency of decades of experience. He diagnosed an acute throat infection, prescribed antibiotics and antipyretics, and assured her that with proper treatment, the girl would recover quickly. "Children this age have a developing immune system," the doctor explained. "It is common for them to catch infections, especially during periods of emotional stress." Over the next 3 days, Raphael completely reorganized his schedule to care for Lara. He worked remotely from his apartment, attending video conference meetings while monitoring the child's temperature and making sure she took her medications on time. Sophia remained constantly by her sister's side, refusing to leave, even for lessons with her tutor. "We've always looked out for each other," Sophia explained with a seriousness beyond her 6 years. "Mommy taught us that we're stronger together." These small revelations about the values Ingrid had passed on to her daughters only increased Raphael's admiration for the woman he was looking for. Amidst his concern for Lara, he received a call from Guto Cortez with important news. "We have located the place where Ingrid is," the investigator reported. "It is a textile factory on the outskirts of Valencia, Spain. We were able to confirm her presence through an employee who recently escaped." "How is she?" Raphael asked, moving away so the girls wouldn't hear the conversation. There was a significant pause before the answer. "The conditions are difficult," Guto said cautiously. 16-hour shifts, poor food, constant surveillance. The informant mentioned that Ingrid tried to escape twice and was severely punished for it. Raphael closed his eyes, trying to contain the wave of anger that invaded him. "We are planning a coordinated operation with the Spanish authorities," Guto continued. "But we need to act with extreme caution. Any wrong move could put the victims at even greater risk." How long? Raphael asked, impatience evident in his voice. 2 weeks at least. We are gathering enough evidence to ensure not only the rescue, but also the conviction of those responsible. When he hung up, Raphael found Sophia standing in the hallway watching him closely. Did you find Mom? She asked directly. Raphael hesitated. How could he explain the situation to a 6-year-old? He decided on the simple truth. Yes, Sophia. We found your mother in another country. She is working far away, but we are doing everything we can to bring her back. The girl's eyes shone with hope, but there was also a premature wisdom in her gaze. She can't go back alone, right? That's why you're helping? Raphael nodded, amazed at the child's insight. Exactly. Sometimes good people get stuck in difficult situations and need help getting out. Sophia hugged him suddenly, surprising him. Thank you, Uncle Raphael. Grandma always says that God puts angels in our path when we need them most. The innocent words provoked intense emotion in Raphael. He was far from considering himself an angel, especially knowing his indirect responsibility for the suffering of that family. But Sophia's sincere gratitude motivated him even more to do whatever it took to reunite that fragmented family. With Lara now on the mend, Raphael decided it was time to tackle another pending issue. He contacted his lawyer and instructed him to set up a compensation fund for all families affected by workplace accidents at Allard Construções during the period in which safety was compromised. It was a small step in light of the damage caused, but it was necessary. He also began a rigorous internal audit to track all links between his company and Martins and Souza. The initial results were alarming. The transfers had been approved by several directors over the years, including Martin Karen himself, under the guise of International Strategic Consulting. In an emergency meeting with the board, Raphael explained the situation without revealing his personal connection to the case. Our company may be unwittingly funding criminal operations, he told shocked executives. Starting today, every penny that leaves this building will be tracked in minute detail. I want absolute transparency. Mirel Souda, always perceptive, realized that there was more behind that sudden change. Does this have anything to do with your temporary leave? She asked privately after the meeting. Raphael hesitated before answering. Let's just say I'm rediscovering the true purpose of having built all this, and it wasn't to serve as an instrument for the suffering of others. The following days were filled with activity on both fronts. Raphael personally oversaw the restructuring of the corporate governance of Allard Corporation, while maintaining constant contact with Guto about the preparations for Ingrid's rescue. The twins, now with Lara recovered, continued their routine of studying and playing, watched closely by Donazania. On a particularly meaningful afternoon, Raphael decided to take the girls to see his country house, a refuge he had rarely visited since Clara's departure. The property, spacious and surrounded by lush nature, immediately enchanted the twins. Can we explore everything? Sophia asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Of course, but stay where I can see you, Raphael replied, smiling as he watched the children's joy. As the girls ran across the lawn, Raphael looked at the house that had once been the scene of happy moments with Clara. It was in that place that they planned to build a family, dreams interrupted by the infertility diagnosis that devastated his wife. Lost in memories, Raphael barely noticed when Lara approached silently, holding something in her small hands. I found this in the garden, she said, holding out a small wooden box partially buried next to a rose bush. Raphael immediately recognized the object, a small jewelry box that had belonged to Clara, where she kept her most valuable pieces. How it had ended up buried in the garden was a mystery. Opening the box, he found a yellowed envelope addressed to him with his wife's unmistakable handwriting. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope while the twins now played in the distance. Dear Raphael, if you found this letter, it means that something happened to me before I could personally reveal what I discovered. Forgive me for hiding so many things from you, but I tried to protect you from a truth that could destroy everything we built together. Martins and Souza is not just a front company for human trafficking. It is part of a much larger scheme that has infiltrated several Brazilian corporations, including ours. Martin Karen does not act alone. There are people in much higher positions involved. I discovered this while trying to help my friend Ingrid, whose husband was a victim of our construction company's lack of safety. While investigating ways to compensate her without her knowledge, I came across documents that prove the connection between Allard Corporation and this criminal scheme. I'm gathering evidence to present to the authorities, but I fear for my safety. Ingrid is also in danger. She discovered part of this plot when she started working at Martins and Souza, and now they are planning to silence her. If anything happens to me, please help Ingrid and her twin daughters. They are innocent in this sordid story and do not deserve to pay for the mistakes of others. The necklace you always saw me wearing actually belongs to Ingrid. Keep it safe and return it to her one day. With eternal love, Clara. Raphael dropped the letter, feeling as if the world was spinning around him. Clara hadn't left suddenly. She had been silenced for discovering the truth. And Ingrid hadn't disappeared voluntarily. She had been sent abroad to keep her from revealing what she knew. The magnitude of the conspiracy left him stunned. His own company, his hard-earned empire, was implicated in heinous crimes without his knowledge, and Clara, his beloved wife, had possibly been a victim of this same criminal organization. "Uncle Raphael, are you crying?" Sophia asked, approaching worriedly. Sir Raphael hadn't even noticed the tears rolling down his face. He quickly put the letter away and closed the box. "Sometimes adults cry when they find important memories," he explained, trying to smile. "It's okay." But all was not well. Clara's letter changed everything. What had begun as a quest for personal redemption and humanitarian aid now revealed itself to be a much more complex and dangerous plot. The urgency to rescue. Ingrid took on a new dimension. She might have crucial information about what really happened to Clara. The clock was showing 3 in the morning when Raphael received the call from Guto Cortez. He quickly got up from the sofa, where he had fallen asleep while reviewing documents, trying not to make any noise so as not to wake the twins who were sleeping in the next room. "We have a window of opportunity," the investigator said, his voice tense with urgency. "The operation has been brought forward to tomorrow night. The Spanish police have identified a scheme to transfer the workers to another location, probably because they suspect they are under surveillance." "I'm on the next flight to Madrid," Raphael replied without hesitation. "I don't recommend your presence there, Mr. Allard. It's a high-risk police operation." "I'm not asking for permission, Guto. I need to be there when they find Ingrid." After hanging up, Raphael began preparing for his trip. He contacted Mirel Souda, briefly explaining that he needed to travel for urgent personal reasons. Then he called Donna Zania for a serious conversation in the kitchen. "I need you to take care of the girls for a few days," he explained. "It's an emergency I can't put off." The governess, who had already grown fond of the twins, nodded seriously. "You can trust me, Mr. Raphael. I will take care of them as if they were my granddaughters." "There is one more thing," he continued hesitantly. "If I am not back in 5 days, give this envelope to Dr. Vieira." He handed her a sealed envelope containing detailed instructions for his lawyer on how to proceed with the twins, Anna, and the search for Ingrid should anything happen to him. It also included a provisional will, ensuring that the girls and Anna would be financially supported. "You're scaring me," commented Mrs. Zania, holding the envelope as if it was something fragile. "It's just a precaution," Raphael assured with a forced smile. "I intend to return as soon as possible and with good news." The next morning, he said goodbye to the twins, explaining that he had to go on an urgent business trip. "Will you be very brave while I'm gone?" he asked, crouching down to their level. "Are you going to bring Mom?" Sophia asked directly, surprising him again with her perceptiveness. Raphael hesitated only for a moment, before answering truthfully. "I'll do my best, Sophia. That's why I'm traveling." The girls hugged him simultaneously, a gesture that filled him with renewed determination. What had begun as an attempt at personal redemption had turned into a mission that gave new meaning to his life. Hours later, Raphael landed in Madrid, where Guto Cortez was waiting for him at the airport. The investigator looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a stubble on his face. but his gaze maintained the determination of someone close to completing an important mission. "The operation is scheduled for tonight at 11 p.m. local time," he said as he drove through the streets of Madrid. "The Spanish National Police will lead the operation, with support from Interpol and observers from the local federal police. I have obtained authorization for us to wait at an outpost about 2 kilometers from the scene." Raphael watched the landscape through the window, absorbing the information while trying to control the anxiety that was consuming him. After the discovery of Clara's letter, the whole situation had taken on a new dimension. It was not only about rescuing Ingrid, but also discovering the truth about what had happened to his own wife. "Show me what we know about the location," he asked, turning his attention back to the matter at hand. Guto parked on a quiet street and opened his laptop, displaying satellite images and photographs of an industrial complex on the outskirts of Valencia. "The textile factory is just a front for the labor exploitation operation. There are approximately 70 women inside, most of them Latin American and Eastern European. They are kept in precarious accommodation at the back of the main building and work in conditions analogous to slavery." "What about Ingrid? Do we have visual confirmation of her?" "One of our informants identified this woman as Ingrid Caruso," Guto replied, showing a surveillance photograph showing a woman with dark hair tied back and a haggard face walking among other workers. Despite the poor quality of the image and the woman's weakened appearance, Raphael recognized the same features he had seen in the photograph in the twins' photo frame and in the photos in Anna's album. Those same dark eyes that Sophia and Lara had inherited. "It's her," he confirmed, feeling a contradictory emotion of relief at finding her alive and anger at the conditions she found herself in. The next few hours were spent waiting tensely in a small apartment that served as the base for the operation. Raphael watched the constant movement of police officers and agents, the rapid-fire communications in Spanish that he could barely follow, and the growing tension as the time of the operation approached. At 10:30 p.m., a national police officer entered the apartment for the final briefing. With the help of a translator, he explained that the operation would be quick and coordinated, with teams entering simultaneously from 4 different points in the industrial complex. "Our priority is the safety of the victims," the officer emphasized. "Mr. Allard, you and Mr. Cortez will remain at this location until we have full control of the situation. Only then will you be allowed to approach, and only with a police escort." Raphael nodded, understanding the need for safety protocols, though. Every fiber of his being wanted to be on the front lines when they found Ingrid. When the operation finally began, the silence in the apartment was deafening. Raphael and Guto listened to the radio communications, trying to interpret the codes and commands exchanged between the tactical teams. After 20 minutes of intense activity, the sentence they were waiting for came over the radio. "Safe location. 72 victims identified, requesting medical and assistance team." Raphael felt a momentary relief, soon replaced by a new anxiety. "And Ingrid, is she among those rescued?" Guto transmitted the question over the radio, and the answer took agonizing minutes to arrive. "All victims are being identified. Please wait for authorization to access the site." An hour later, which seemed like an eternity to Raphael, they finally received permission to head to the industrial complex, now surrounded by police cars, ambulances, and press teams kept at a distance by a police cordon. Upon arrival, they were received by an investigator from the local federal police who was monitoring the operation. "Mr. Allard, we have found Mrs. Ingrid Caruso," he said. "She is receiving initial medical attention, but she asked to speak to the person responsible for her rescue as soon as she learned that there were Brazilians involved in the operation." Raphael felt his heart race. "How is she?" "Weakened, but conscious and oriented. Apparently she was in better condition than many of the other victims because she had nursing knowledge and was kept as a kind of caregiver for the others." They continued on to an area where medical teams were treating the rescued women. On a stretcher in the distance, a woman with dark hair and an extremely thin body was receiving an intravenous drip while talking to a doctor. Even from a distance, Raphael recognized Ingrid. He approached hesitantly, unsure of how he would be received. When Ingrid turned her face toward him, he saw the exact moment recognition dawned in her tired eyes. "You are Raphael Allard," she said, not as a question, but as a statement charged with complex emotions. "Yes," he confirmed, stopping respectfully a few steps from the stretcher. "I found your daughters a few weeks ago and have been taking care of them while we searched for you." Ingrid's eyes instantly filled with tears. "Sophia and Lara. Are they okay? What about my mom?" "They're all fine," Raphael assured. "Their mother had pneumonia, but she's already recovering in an excellent clinic. The girls are healthy and safe in my apartment with a trustworthy housekeeper." Ingrid closed her eyes for a moment, as if absorbing the relief of that news. "Why you? Why did you find them?" he finally asked, opening his eyes to look at him. Raphael understood the weight of that question. She knew who he was, the man whose company had indirectly contributed to the accident that had killed her husband. "It was fate, perhaps," he answered truthfully. "Or Clara, somehow." Clara's name provoked a visible reaction in Ingrid, a mixture of surprise and pain. "Do you know about Clara? About our friendship?" Raphael nodded. "I found out from her diary, and then I confirmed with your mother. I know Clara has been secretly helping you for years, and I know about the necklace." "The necklace," Ingrid murmured instinctively, reaching for her empty neck. "Do the girls have it?" "It's kept safe," Raphael assured. "That's how it all started. They were trying to sell it to buy medicine for their mother when I found them." Ingrid let out a shaky sigh, as if that information was simultaneously a relief and a pain. "Clara asked me to keep it temporarily," she explained. "She said it was too valuable for me to sell in desperation. She promised to return it to me when I was more financially stable." She paused, her eyes filling with tears again. "I never imagined Clara could. I also recently discovered that her disappearance may not have been what it seemed," Raphael interrupted smoothly. "I found a letter where she mentions that you were in danger because of something you discovered at Martins and Souza." Ingrid visibly paled, and the doctor who was attending to her intervened, warning her that she needed to rest. Raphael stepped back, understanding that that conversation would have to wait. "I'll make arrangements to bring you back as soon as you're fit to travel," he assured her. "Your daughters are waiting for you." As he walked away, Raphael heard Ingrid call him. "Mr. Allard, thank you for finding my daughters. Regardless of the past, that is something I will always be grateful for." Those words, spoken sincerely despite all the reasons Ingrid had for resentment, touched Raphael deeply. For the first time since he had begun this journey, he felt that the redemption he sought was not just an impossible dream. The next 3 days were filled with intense preparations. While Ingrid received medical care at a hospital in Valencia, Raphael worked tirelessly on the necessary procedures to take her back. The bureaucratic complications were numerous. Ingrid had no documents. There were ongoing legal proceedings against those responsible for the human trafficking scheme, and her health condition, although stable, still required concern. "We need judicial authorization to transport her as a protected witness," explained the local federal police chief who was following the case. "There are powerful interests involved in this criminal network, including influential people." Raphael had hired the best international human rights lawyers to speed up the process. He made daily video calls with the twins, who could barely contain their excitement at the news that their mother had been found. "When are you guys coming back?" Sophia asked in every call, her tiny face taking up almost the entire screen of the phone. "Soon, Princess," Raphael replied, avoiding promising specific dates. "Your mother is undergoing some tests to make sure she is strong enough for the trip." Reality. Doctors were concerned about Ingrid's emotional and psychological state, as well as her malnutrition and various health problems resulting from her time in captivity. The physical scars were visible, but the emotional ones would require much more time and care to heal. In the few conversations they managed to have during those days, Ingrid revealed to Raphael parts of the story that still remained obscure. "Started working at Martins and Souza on the recommendation of a former colleague," she said as she watched the sun set through the hospital window. "The pay was good, and they promised me the possibility of working abroad eventually with pay in euros. For a single mother caring for 2 children and a sick elderly woman, it seemed like a miracle. Raphael listened attentively, without interrupting. Each word Ingrid said helped to complete the puzzle that united their lives in such an unlikely way. I quickly realized there was something strange about the company's operations, she continued. Documents that didn't make sense. Export shipments that didn't match what was actually being shipped. Strange codes in the records. I started writing down these inconsistencies without fully understanding what they meant. Ingrid paused, as if gathering the strength to continue. One day, I found a document with coded names and destinations abroad. One of these codes was CC19. I remembered that Clara always used the number 19 in her passwords because of her birthday. That seemed more than a coincidence to me. Raphael felt a chill run down his spine. CC19, Clara Cavalcanti, born on March 19th. I told Clara about my findings, Ingrid continued. At first, she didn't give them much weight, thinking I was seeing conspiracies where there were just questionable accounting practices. But when I showed her the list of codes, something changed. She turned pale and asked me not to talk about it to anyone else, not even to her on the phone. When was the last time you saw her? Raphael asked, dreading the answer. 2 days before. Ingrid hesitated, choosing her words carefully. 2 days before she left. She came to my house. She seemed agitated. She said she was investigating something serious related to Martins and Sousa, and had discovered connections with the Allard Corporation. She said that as soon as she had all the evidence, she would confront you, and together they would take action. Raphael swallowed hard, absorbing the impact of those words. Clara planned to confront him, not abandon him. She trusted that once he knew the truth, he would act correctly. The next day, Ingrid continued, I received a strange phone call at work. A male voice asked about documents that did not belong to me. Before I could respond, the call was ended. That same afternoon, my supervisor called me into a special meeting with the company director. They told me that I had been selected for a special training program in Europe, starting immediately. When I tried to refuse, they mentioned my mother and daughters in a way that sounded like a veiled threat. Ingrid looked away to the window again, her voice now barely above a whisper. I called Clara in desperation, but I couldn't get through to her. I left a confusing message on her answering machine, afraid of being too explicit. That night, I was forced to get on a plane, supposedly to Madrid. All I could do was leave a quick note for my mother saying that a job opportunity had come up abroad and that I would send her an update as soon as possible. Raphael listened to the story with a heavy heart, realizing that Ingrid's disappearance coincided exactly with the date Clara had supposedly left her home and her life behind. When did you learn about Clara? He asked softly. After almost a month at the factory, Ingrid replied, wiping away a single tear. One of the supervisors was reading Brazilian newspapers online and showed me a small note about the death of businessman Raphael Allard's wife. There were no details, just a mention of natural causes. I knew it couldn't be true. A heavy silence settled between them. The theory that had been forming in Raphael's mind was now gaining ground. Clara hadn't left. She had been silenced for finding out too much about the connection between the Allard Corporation and the human trafficking ring. We need to take this information to the authorities, Raphael said finally. There's a lot more at stake here than we initially realized. On the 5th day after the rescue, they finally got authorization to return. A private jet, hired by Raphael, was equipped with medical equipment to ensure Ingrid's comfort and safety during the flight. A private security team made up of former federal agents accompanied the transfer. During the flight, Ingrid alternated between moments of extreme anxiety about the impending reunion with her daughters and mother, and periods of apprehension about the uncertain future that awaited them. What will happen when we get back? She asked Raphael as they flew over the Atlantic. I have nothing but debts and a life that was cut short 2 years ago. I have a proposal, Raphael replied after a moment of thought. The country house has been empty for years. It is a safe place, secluded and with plenty of room for you, the girls and Mrs. Anna. You can stay there for as long as necessary, with all the appropriate medical care and security. Ingrid studied him with a piercing gaze, as if evaluating not just the offer but the intentions behind it. Why? Why are you doing all this for us? Is it guilt? Remorse for what happened to Gabriel? Raphael held her gaze, understanding the distrust. It started that way, he admitted honestly. When I found out that my company was indirectly involved. In your husband's accident, I felt a visceral need to somehow make up for the suffering caused, but now it's different. Different how? Ingrid pressed. Your daughters have taught me more about unconditional love and courage in just a few weeks than I have in my entire life, Raphael replied, emotion breaking in his voice. And finding out what Clara was trying to do, to protect you, to seek justice, even if it meant confronting her own husband, has made me realize how far I have fallen from the values that truly matter. I am not helping you just to redeem myself, but because you have become important to me. Ingrid seemed to process those words for a long moment before nodding slightly. We accept your offer for now, but once I'm back on my feet, I want to work to be independent again. I don't intend to be a permanent charity case, Mr. Allard. Raphael, he corrected gently, and I've never thought of you as a charity. In fact, I have a professional proposal as well, when you're ready to consider it. The Allard Corporation is undergoing a complete restructuring, and we need people with strong ethical senses to lead new social initiatives. When they finally landed in the capital, a delegation was waiting for them on the runway. In addition to the medical team that would accompany Ingrid to the hospital for a full evaluation, there was a federal police officer responsible for the human trafficking case in the country. Ms. Caruso, the officer greeted respectfully. I'm Officer Moreau. I know you must be anxious to see your family again, but we'll need your formal statement as soon as the doctors give the go-ahead. I understand, Ingrid replied. I am willing to do whatever it takes to hold those responsible accountable. At the hospital, Ingrid underwent a series of tests while Raphael finalized the preparations for the family reunion. He decided that it would be better to hold it at the country house, a more private and peaceful environment than his apartment or the hospital. Anna, already informed about her daughter's rescue, was transferred from the clinic to the country house where a nursing team would continue to monitor her recovery. The twins were taken there by Donna Zania, not yet knowing the surprise that awaited them. Did Uncle Raphael buy a new house? Sophia asked as she explored the large garden with her sister. It's an old house. Actually, Donna Zania explained, he just hasn't been here in a long time. When Raphael's car finally pulled into the gates of the property, Ingrid's heart felt like it was going to burst out of her chest. After 2 years of nightmares, she was just minutes away from being reunited with her daughters and their mother. Raphael noticed her nervousness and tried to reassure her. They're just as anxious as you are, he said softly. They haven't stopped asking when you'd be back since they heard we found you. The car stopped in front of the house, but before Raphael could go around it to open the door, Ingrid had already stepped out, her shaky legs barely supporting her weakened body. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as she stared at the house's porch where 2 small identical figures materialized, as if conjured by her own willpower. Mommy! The twins' unison cry broke the spell, and the world began to move at an accelerated speed again. Sophia and Lara ran as if their lives depended on it, and Ingrid fell to her knees on the grass, opening her arms to receive the impact of the small bodies against hers. The sound of her crying mixed with the joyful exclamations of the girls created a symphony of emotion that deeply touched everyone present. Raphael watched the scene from a few steps away, feeling simultaneously part of that moment and a privileged observer of something sacred. Donna Zania approached him, discreetly wiping her own tears. You have done a good thing, said the housekeeper, a very good thing. Ingrid's reunion with Anna was equally emotional. The elderly woman, still fragile from her recent illness, could not contain her tears when she saw the daughter she feared she would never see again. The two embraced for a long time, communicating without words all the love and concern they had accumulated during their forced separation. The next few hours were spent adapting and rediscovering themselves. The twins were inseparable from their mother, as if they were afraid that she might disappear again if they lost sight of her. Ingrid, for her part, couldn't stop touching her daughters' faces, amazed at how much they had grown and changed in the 2 years of her absence. "You are so big," she repeated, between tears and smiles. "So beautiful and strong." Raphael watched the family reunion with a mixture of joy and melancholy. He had accomplished his initial goal, finding Ingrid and bringing her back to her daughters, but he knew that the road ahead would still be full of challenges. The truth about Clara needed to be fully revealed, those responsible for the human trafficking ring punished, and the connection with his own company investigated to the very end. Most importantly, the family needed time and space to heal from the wounds of the past and rebuild their lives together. Raphael was determined to provide all the support needed to make this happen, even if it meant completely reconfiguring his own priorities and values. 6 months had passed since Ingrid's rescue. The country house, once a symbol of painful memories for Raphael, now pulsed with new life. The garden, once perfectly pruned but devoid of character, had been transformed into a vibrant space where a variety of flowers coexisted with a small organic vegetable garden that Anna cultivated as part of her recovery therapy. Sophia and Lara, now almost 7, had settled into the new rural school near their property. At first shy around their peers after so much isolation, they soon became beloved for their creativity and the unique bond they shared as twins. Lara continued to develop her artistic talent, now taking formal drawing and painting lessons. Sophia had revealed a surprising aptitude for science, fascinated by the school laboratory, where she could conduct small experiments. Ingrid, meanwhile, was making progress in her physical and emotional recovery with the help of a multidisciplinary team. Therapy sessions 3 times a week helped her process the trauma of captivity, while nutritional support gradually restored her health. Most important of all, however, was the time she spent with her daughters and mother. Every moment together helped fill the void of the 2 lost years. That Saturday morning, while the girls played in the garden under the watchful eye of Donna Zania, who had refused to leave her little ones even after Ingrid's return, Raphael arrived for his weekly visit. These visits had become a regular occurrence, initially motivated by practical concerns about the family's well-being, but gradually evolving into moments that everyone looked forward to. "Uncle Raphael is here," Sophia announced, running to the gate while Lara followed her at a more restrained but equally enthusiastic pace. Raphael, now dressed in casual clothes that would have shocked his former business associates, smiled when he saw the girls. He carried with him a box of sweets from the Portuguese bakery the twins loved, and a briefcase with important documents. "How are my favorite scientists?" he asked, crouching down to receive the double hug that had become ritual. "I did an experiment with colored beans," Sophia exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "The teacher said, 'She's never seen such a good result.' And I finished my painting of the mountain," Lara added, more reserved but equally proud. "I can't wait to see both of your creations," Raphael replied with genuine interest. "But first I need to talk to your mother. Boring adult stuff." The girls nodded with the comical seriousness they sometimes assumed, like little adults in children's bodies. "Mommy is on the porch with Grandma," Sophia said. "They're drinking that weird tea that grown-ups like." Raphael went to the balcony, where he found Ingrid and Anna enjoying the sunny morning. Anna, although still frail, looked years younger than when he had met her in the small house on the outskirts. Ingrid, for her part, had regained not only her weight and health, but a spark of vitality in her eyes that only grew with each passing week. "Good morning, ladies," Raphael greeted, placing the box of sweets on the table. "I brought something for your afternoon coffee." "You're going to spoil the girls until they turn into little sugar hurricanes," Ingrid joked with a warm smile. "But thank you. You know they love it." Anna, who had initially been the most resistant to Raphael's constant presence, now welcomed him with genuine affection. "Sit down, boy," she invited, using the affectionate term she had recently adopted to refer to him despite the age difference. "It seems there is news." Raphael sat down, observing the peaceful scenery around him for a moment before opening the folder he was carrying. "The proceedings have advanced significantly," he began, adopting a more serious tone. "The federal police have concluded the initial phase of the investigation into Martins and Souza and its connections with the Allard Corporation. Several executives have already been indicted, including Martin Caron." Ingrid nodded gravely. She had given detailed statements to authorities as soon as her health condition allowed, providing names, dates, and information crucial to dismantling the human trafficking ring. "The most important thing," Raphael continued, "is that we've finally been able to reopen the investigation into—" He hesitated, still finding it hard to get the words out. "About what happened to Clara." A respectful silence fell over the three. The mention of Clara's name still brought up complex emotions, especially for Ingrid, who carried the weight of possibly being the last person to speak to her before her tragic fate. "Deputy Moreau believes we have sufficient evidence to prove that this was not a natural cause," Raphael explained. "The evidence you provided regarding the encrypted documents, combined with the letter we found and the communications records from the time, establish a clear pattern of threat." "She tried to warn me," Ingrid said softly, looking off into the distance. "In the last message she left for me, she said she had discovered something too big and too dangerous, but that she would do the right thing, no matter the consequences." Raphael felt the familiar tightness in his chest whenever he thought about Clara's last days, the anguish she must have felt, torn between protecting her friend and confronting the empire her own husband had built without realizing its dark ramifications. "There's one more thing," Raphael said, removing a small velvet case from his briefcase. "Something I'd like to officially return." She opened the case, revealing the gold necklace with a half-moon pendant that had started this whole unexpected journey. Ingrid held her breath when she saw it. "My mother's necklace," Anna whispered, overcome with emotion. "Ingrid, I thought we had lost it forever when the girls tried to sell it." "Sophia told me that you asked Clara to keep it temporarily," Raphael explained, handing the case to Ingrid. "She kept it as a promise that one day you would be safe and stable again to receive it back. Today, I am fulfilling that promise for her." Ingrid took the necklace with trembling hands, gently running her fingers over the metal that held so many stories and meanings. "Thank you," she said simply, words inadequate to express the complexity of the moment. After a brief silence, Raphael returned to practical matters, explaining the next steps in the legal proceedings and the measures being taken to ensure the family's continued safety. The trafficking ring had been significantly dismantled, but powerful interests were still at play, and caution remained necessary. "I have other news," he said, when the legal issues were exhausted. "The restructuring of the Allard Corporation is nearly complete. We have created a new board of directors for social responsibility and ethical practices that will oversee all operations of the company." Ingrid arched, an eyebrow realizing where the conversation was going. "And I would like to formally invite you to take over this department," Raphael concluded. "Your experience, integrity, and knowledge will be invaluable in ensuring that what happened in the past never happens again." The proposal hovered between them like something tangible. Ingrid had mentioned several times her desire to go back to work, to regain her financial independence, but she still felt insecure about re-entering the corporate world after the trauma she had experienced. "It would be a flexible arrangement initially," Raphael added, noting his hesitation. "Say a few hours a week, remote work when needed. The headquarters have been moved to a new building, completely detached from the old operations, a real fresh start." "I need to think about it," Ingrid finally replied. "I appreciate the offer and the trust, but it's a decision that affects more than just me." Raphael nodded, understanding her concerns perfectly. The lunch that followed was lighter, with the girls dominating the conversation with lively stories about school and ambitious plans for the upcoming vacation. Later, as the girls showed Raphael their latest projects, Sophia's science experiment and Lara's painting, Ingrid watched him interact with her daughters. It was clear how much he had developed affection for them, and even more surprising, how much they had grown fond of him. From a well-dressed stranger they'd met at a rainy traffic light, Raphael had become a constant, comforting presence in their lives. As the afternoon began to give way to dusk, Raphael prepared to leave. While the girls hugged him goodbye and demanded that he return soon, Ingrid accompanied him to the car. "You've really changed," she said, looking at him with new eyes. "When I found out my daughters were being cared for by Raphael Allard, the man whose company had contributed to their father's tragedy, I panicked. Now I see them running to hug him like he's part of the family." Raphael smiled, a smile that now reached his eyes, something rare in the past. "They changed me, not the other way around," he answered honestly. "They showed me what really matters, just like Clara tried to show me for years. I only regret that it took me so long to see it." Ingrid hesitated for a moment before speaking. "About the job offer, I think I will accept it, not only because of the professional challenge, but because I believe we can really transform Allard Corporation into something that generates a positive impact." Raphael felt a surge of genuine satisfaction. This wasn't just about business, it was about building something meaningful from the ashes of so much suffering. "I would be honored to have you on the team," he replied formally, before adding with a smile. "But I want to make it clear that the position is yours on your own merit, not because of feelings of guilt or compensation." "I never doubted that," Ingrid replied, returning the smile. Before getting into the car, Raphael glanced at the brightly lit house, where Sophia and Lara were waving frantically through the window, with Anna standing behind them with a serene smile. The scene was as far removed from his old life of luxurious apartments and endless meetings as could be, and yet, for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at peace. On the way back to the capital, he reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought him here. What had begun as a chance encounter on a rainy day, or perhaps not so chance, had turned into a complete reorientation of values and priorities. The corporate empire he had built remained important, but now as a vehicle for something greater than simply accumulating wealth. The next day, Raphael visited the cemetery where Clara was buried, something he had avoided doing regularly since her passing. This time, however, he carried not only pain and regret, but also gratitude and a new understanding. "I've always known what really mattered," he said quietly, as he stood before the headstone. "You tried to show me in so many ways, and I was too busy building walls around us to notice, but now I understand, and I promise you your sacrifice was not in vain." She placed a small arrangement of lilies, Clara's favorite flowers, on the grave, and sat in silence for a few minutes. There was no more paralyzing guilt or inconsolable grief, just a quiet determination to honor her memory by doing what she had always believed was possible, using her resources and influence to positively impact the lives of others. 2 weeks later, the Allard Corporation officially announced the creation of the Clara Allard Foundation, dedicated to combating human trafficking and supporting its victims. Ingrid was named executive director, bringing her personal experience and humanitarian vision to the initiative. The former Martins and Souza building, confiscated during the investigation, would be transformed into a reception and social reintegration center for women rescued from situations of exploitation. In an intimate ceremony at the country house, Raphael presented Ingrid with a framed painting, the foundation's first official photo of her and a small dedicated team standing in front of the new center under construction. In the background, barely visible to anyone who didn't know how to look for it, was the crescent moon symbol, inspired by the necklace that had brought their stories together in such unexpected ways. "To new beginnings," Raphael toasted, raising a glass. "And for second chances," Ingrid added with